All right, another day of factoring. So remember, factoring is reverse multiplication. And we keep saying we always have to factor out the greatest common factor before we can do anything else. So today we're going to look at problems where we have to factor out that GCF, and then we also have to factor the trinomial. So let's do a couple. We're going to skip that first one because that one doesn't have a GCF and go to 10x squared minus 20x minus 80. So when I'm thinking about my GCF, I'm thinking about what goes into all of those different numbers. What could I divide 10, 20, and 80 by? 10 goes into all of them. So I'm thinking about dividing everything by 10, which would leave me with x squared. 20 divided by 10 is 2. 80 divided by 10 is 8. Okay, and then my GCF, I'm just going to kind of leave it out over here so I don't forget about it because I'll need that as part of my final answer. So we took our original trinomial and now we made it into x squared minus 2x minus 8. So here's the thing, I don't care about this anymore. Okay, I'm going to factor my trinomial. I don't care about that. I care about x squared minus 2x minus 8. And I'm going to factor that. Well, the only way to get x squared is to do x times x. Multiplying to be negative 8, we have a couple different options, right? So if I just think about multiplying to be 8, I could do 1 times 8, or I could do 2 times 4. And since it's a negative 8, that doubles my options here. So I'm going to write down all the possibilities. Now, here's my guess and check. I need it to multiply to be negative 8, and I need it to add to be negative 2. Well, these aren't going to work, right? That'd be 7 and negative 7. Negative 2 and 4 is a positive 2. That's close, but not what I'm looking for. 2 and negative 4. 2 minus 4, there's the negative 2 we want. So we must have an x plus 2 and an x minus 4. So when I'm writing my final answer, because my final answer, if I multiplied it all together, it should equal 10x squared minus 20x minus 80. So my final answer is putting my GCF and my factored form together. It would be 10 times x plus 2 times x minus 4. And that's how we factor with the greatest common factor. We get that GCF out of there, and then we guess and check to factor our trinomial. Let's do a couple more. All right, 6x cubed minus 15x squared minus 9x. What's our GCF? Well, 6, 15, and 9, 3 goes into all of those, so I could divide a 3 out of here. But I noticed one other thing. I noticed these have an extra x. X cubed. We're working with quadratics. That means x squared. So since all of these have an x, I could take an x out of there. Well, 6 divided by 3 is 2. And then if I had 3 x's and I get rid of 1, I've got x squared. 15 divided by 3 is 5. If I had 2 x's and I get rid of 1, that leaves me with an x. 9 divided by 3 is 3. And an x, take away an x, that's just gone. So my GCF is 3x. I'm going to put that over here so I don't forget about it. And remember, we don't care about our original trinomial anymore. We care about 2x squared minus 5x minus 3. And that's what we're going to factor. All right, here's my guess and check. To get 2x squared, I could do 2 times 1. So one of these is going to be 2x, the other is going to be 1x. To multiply to be negative 3, I could do 1 times negative 3, but I could also do negative 1 times positive 3. So I got a couple different options here. I could do a positive 1 and a negative 3. I could do a negative 3 and a positive 1. Or I could flip-flop these, right? I'm running out of room. 2x minus 1 and x plus 3. So I'm changing my signs here for my last couple options. All right, I think I got them all, but I'll double check. Okay, all these are slightly different, right? They look pretty similar, but you notice the signs where we put the number are slightly different on all of them. So only one of them, all of them multiply to be 2x squared. All of them multiply to be negative 3. Only one of them is going to add to be negative 5. So let's check it out. Okay, so 2x times negative 3 is negative 6x. 1 times x is 1x. Negative 6x plus 1, that's negative 5x. Huh, look at that. We only had to try one of them. There's our answer. So if I put this together with my GCF, we've got 3x times 2x plus 1 times x minus 3. That's all she wrote. We didn't even need to check these other ones because our first one worked out. Don't you love when that happens? All right, let's do a couple more examples here. Negative 12x plus 56x minus 32. What do I notice about this? I notice that this first term is negative. I can't have that. I need that first term to be positive because it just makes my life so much easier. So I'm going to factor a negative out of all of these, which really just means we're going to switch the sign. So instead of a negative, a positive, a negative, we're going to end up with a positive, a negative, a positive. Okay, we're just going to flip-flop those signs. That's how we get rid of a negative here. Well, now I'm thinking about 12, 56, and 32. What could go into all of those? I'm thinking probably 4 could go into all of those. All right, let's see what that leaves us with. Negative 12 divided by negative 4 is a positive 3. Positive 56 divided by a negative 4 is going to be a negative. And then let's see, 4 times 15 is 60, so 4 times 14 is 56. Negative divided by a negative is a positive. 32 divided by 4 is 8. 3x squared minus 14x plus 8. Well, 2 goes into 14 and 8, but it doesn't go into 3. So I know I found my greatest common factor. I factored out everything I possibly could. So I'm going to write that off to the side so I don't forget about it. And now we are ready for our guessing and checking. All right, the only way to multiply to get a 3x squared is if we do a 3 times 1. So one of these will be 3x, the other will be 1x. Okay, multiplying to be a positive 8. Well, we could do 1 times 8 or 2 times 4. Oh, but look what I noticed. I noticed that this is a negative 14. A negative 14 there in the middle. The only way I'm going to get something that's a negative 14 is if I have a negative in here somewhere. So, if I want it to multiply to be a positive and add to be a negative, I must need negative numbers. Because negative 1 times negative 8 is positive 8. Negative 2 times negative 4 is positive 8. But now I'll end up with something that'll add to be a negative number in the middle. All right, so we got 4 different options going on here. So what should we try? Negative 14. Negative 14 isn't all that big. So if I think about multiplying 3 and 8, that's 24. That seems kind of big. And even if I think about like 3 and 1, so that'd be 8 minus 3 is 5. Kind of working through the possibilities in my head. I don't really think 1 and 8 are what I'm looking for. So I'm gonna start with 2 and 4 and hope I get lucky. And if neither of those works, then I'll go back to my 1 and 8. But I'm gonna start with 2 and 4 just because, you know, to me that seems like a little more likely. So I've got 2 options here, right? I got my negative 2 and my negative 4, or I've got my or I've got my 3x minus 4 and my x minus 2. All right, so let's just try this out. 3x squared, 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. Negative 4 times x is negative 4x. Negative 4 times 2 is positive 8. So I got my 3x squared and I got my 8, but negative 6 and negative 4 is only negative 10, and I want negative 14. So that's not going to work. All right, let's go to that other one. 3x times x is 3x squared. 3 times negative 4 is negative 12. Negative 2 times x is negative 2x. Negative 2 times 4 is positive 8. Negative 12 and negative 2. Look at that. A negative 14x. That's what we were looking for, right? These match. That's how we know we factored it correctly. So this one must be my answer. So if I put this all together, I'm going to erase my guess and check over here. Just to have a little bit of room. So if I put everything together, I've got my GCF of negative 4 times 3x minus 2 and x minus 4. And again, if I flip-flop that and said negative 4 times x minus 4 times 3x minus 2, both of those work. Those are the exact same answer. Because if we multiplied those for both of them, we would end up with that original trinomial. All right, so factoring a reverse multiplication, you always factor out that GCF first. If you don't factor out the GCF, you're really not going to be able to factor out. It'll be more difficult to factor. In some cases, you might not be able to. Like this example 3, we wouldn't have been able to factor that with our binomials if we hadn't taken out our GCF, since it was a trinomial. I'm sorry, since it was since it was a cubic instead of a quadratic. okay? So always do that GCF first, and then once you've got your GCF, you can factor your quadratic.